In Chapter 16 of Wuthering Heights, Cathy gives birth to a daughter named Catherine prematurely, and then dies, leaving Edgar without a male heir. Edgar sinks into mourning. Mrs. Dean says that no angel in heaven could appear more beautiful than Cathy's corpse, adding that Cathy was right when she said only hours before her death, she would be incomparably beyond and above us all. Believing Cathy's spirit is at home with God, Mrs. Dean sees repose in the serene corpse and feels reassured of the eternal hereafter's love in its sympathy and love in its fullness. Narrator Mr. Lockwood interjects here that when Mrs. Dean originally told him the story, she asked his opinion about life after death, but he refused to answer, believing to do so would go against the ideology of the established church. Mrs. Dean looks for Heathcliff to tell him the news of Cathys Death, and she finds him beside an ash tree outside Thrushcross Grange. At first, Mrs. Dean cries for Heathcliff, believing God has seen through his pride and brought this humiliation and pain for a purpose. But when Heathcliff bashes his head against the tree and cries out for Cathy's spirit to haunt him, Mrs. Dean admits that it hardly moved her compassion, instead appalling her. Mrs. Dean isn't ready to give up on Heathcliff though, and she offers to sneak him into the house to view the corpse. But she discovers he sneaked in on his own when she finds Edgar's blonde hair on the floor and Heathcliff's dark hair replacing it inside Cathy's locket. She intertwines the locks of hair and describes Cathy's gravesite on the moors. Mrs. Dean's views on love, pity, and religion are the focus of Chapter 16. Mr. Lockwood, through this focus, reveals a little more about his character. He either believes in the conventionality of the established church, or he's unwilling to speak in depth about religion or death. Either way, he remains presented as a shallow gentleman type from the city. Mrs. Dean pities Heathcliff for his loss, yet judges him, entwining the themes of guilt versus judgment with pride versus humiliation. Her ability to empathize is weakened by her strong instinct to judge, a pattern playing out many times throughout the novel. The reader here may pick up on the contradiction evolving through Mrs. Dean's character. She's wholly able to describe the unusually intense love, which she thinks is selfish and irreverent, between Cathy and Heathcliff. If she did not recognize what it is, she would not speak of it in the detailed way she does throughout the novel. The novel continues its reach for ideas beyond good and evil initiated in the previous chapter, as it moves away from the dualism of angels and devils or good and evil toward the idea of something beyond or transcendent.